Governor Noem making a return to national television this weekend. The governor will sit down with NBC's Peter Alexander this Sunday for Meet the Press. I talked with Peter earlier today about that upcoming interview with the governor, and it's a conversation you'll only see on Dakota News Now. All right, Peter, thank you for the time. What is it specifically you want to ask Governor Noem about this Sunday?
It's a good question. I think there's a lot to talk to Governor Noem about as we get ready for our conversation on Sunday. In particular, obviously, as a member of the sort of MAGA movement right now, she can give us some insights as it relates to what she wants to hear from Donald Trump ahead of the debate next Thursday. The two of them have seen eye to eye on a variety of different topics. They also have their differences as it relates to some topics as well, particularly on the topic of reproductive rights and abortion. So I suspect we'll talk to her about all of those things. Her name was for quite a while viewed as a potential vice presidential pick. It's not right now, so I'd like to get her sense of who she thinks perhaps would be the best advocate, ally, running mate for Donald Trump to share the ticket with. And just broadly speaking, I know that she's going to want to sort of prosecute the case on behalf of Donald Trump against Joe Biden right now, where they think the real best opportunities are ahead of Thursday, and some of the questions in that sort of neighborhood. Brian?
You know, Peter, when you talk to high-ranking Republicans there in Washington, is Governor Noem's name still seriously in consideration as a potential running mate? Is she still under consideration, at least as far as you know?
I'll tell you, based on our reporting right now, we have new reporting today from NBC News. It really looks increasingly like this is a two-person race for the vice presidential pick of Donald Trump right now. Increasingly, we are told from about a dozen separate sources who were wired into this process that it looks like J.D. Vance, the Ohio senator, and Doug Burgum, the Republican governor of North Dakota, are really the two top choices right now. Marco Rubio perhaps floating as a third name. There are some constitutional hangups as it relates to Rubio, because both Rubio and Donald Trump call the state of Florida their home. So those are really the three names, two as the front runners that we're hearing about right now. Kristi Noem's name, which had been mentioned early on, doesn't get as much attention. I know there were some controversies after the release of her book that may have impacted that. There was early thinking that Donald Trump would be inclined to try to find a woman to share the ticket with him. Some of the other names we now hear more frequently, frankly, than the governors are Sarah Huckabee Sanders, herself a governor in the state of Arkansas, who formerly served as press secretary, and also Elise Stefanik, who has risen in the ranks among Republican Congress members. So those names still sort of out there. Nothing matters until Donald Trump says he's come up with a pick, but that is the best information that we have heard to this point, Brian. When it comes to being this election year, Peter, how difficult is it to get reliable information out of MAGA world from this point? Trump's surrogates will say one thing one day, and then maybe 24 hours later or a couple of days later, the candidate himself, Donald Trump, will say something that maybe isn't exactly the opposite, but doesn't gel well with what his surrogates have been previously, saying. Well, no, you make a good point, and I think everyone would agree that if you're trying to report on Donald Trump, there's only one person who knows exactly what Donald Trump's thinking, and that's the candidate himself right now, for better or for worse. I can't tell you how many times when I was covering the Trump White House, when there would be a post on social media, and I'd be sitting with top staffers who would be caught by surprise and say, what does it say? Oh, wow, now we need to come up with a response to that, or we need to change a policy because of that right now. So it was a bit of that sort of chaotic thinking, less team-oriented, more sort of, from the top-oriented thinking that made those years particularly, I think, different than perhaps we have seen in the past. In terms of if you can get good information or not, I think really the only information you can rely on is what you hear from the president, former president, and frankly, there have been a lot of times where he has contradicted his own views, including most recently on reproductive rights, where he was saying for a while that Republicans shouldn't be talking about this issue, saying it's a loser for them, and now our reporting from people in the room is he told House Republicans they should be focusing on the topic of reproductive rights. So his thinking has been a bit all over the map right now, which is what makes this debate, I think, so interesting for a lot of Americans, a chance to really see him unfiltered in effect right now, and also to see Joe Biden, given there's been a lot of questions about his ability to serve another 4 years. Peter Alexander will have moderator duty this coming Sunday on Meet the Press on NBC. Peter, thank you so much for the time. Thank you, Brian. You bet.